sent to Iran on pallets. But only 15 billion reached Tehran. Kash Patel slid the document across to Trump. Where's the rest? Obama's former Treasury Secretary was found with 10 billion in his Dubai account. The remaining 25 billion was still missing, until today. The revelation had come from the most unlikely source, a Swiss banker facing life in prison for unrelated fraud charges. Desperate to cut a deal, he'd offered information that made even seasoned FBI agents pause. I can tell you where Obama's Iran money really went. Trump sat in the secure conference room at Mar-a-Lago, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. Kash Patel, now running a special investigative unit, had spent 3 months following the money trail. What he'd found defied belief. Let me make sure I understand this, Trump said, his voice dangerously calm. Obama sent 50 billion in cash to Iran, physical cash, on pallets. In the middle of the night, correct, Kash confirmed. The official story was it was Iran's frozen assets being returned as part of the nuclear deal. But the Iranian central bank only logged 15 billion as received. The other 35 billion, Kash pulled up a complex flowchart on the screen. It took some very interesting detours. The chart showed a spider web of transactions, shell companies, and offshore accounts spanning from Tehran to Dubai, from Zurich to the Cayman Islands. At the center of the web was a name that made Trump's jaw clench: Valerie Jarrett, Obama's handler. Trump muttered. More than that, Kash corrected. She was the architect. Look at this. He pulled up banking records from the National Bank of Dubai. 3 days after the cash left Andrews Air Force Base, $10 billion appeared in an account controlled by Jack Lew, Obama's Treasury Secretary. The account was opened just 2 weeks before the Iran payment. How did no one notice this? Because everyone was focused on the planes going to Iran. No one was watching the planes that stopped in Dubai for refueling. During those stops, pallets were offloaded, cash was counted, and new destinations were arranged. Trump leaned back in his chair. Where did the rest go? Kash clicked to the next slide. That's where our Swiss friend comes in. He handled the European distribution. According to his records, 8 billion went through Vatican Bank. The Vatican. Trump's eyebrows shot up. Obama met with the Pope right before the Iran deal was finalized. Officially, they discussed climate change. Unofficially, Kash showed photos of Vatican Bank officials meeting with Iranian representatives. The Vatican provided humanitarian cover for moving billions in cash. Who else got paid? That's the $25 billion question. Our source says there are 15 numbered accounts in Switzerland, each holding between 1 and 3 billion. He has the account numbers, but not all the names attached to them. Some of the names. Kash pulled up a list that made Trump whistle low. John Kerry, 2 billion. Susan Rice, 1.5 billion. Ben Rhodes, 800 million. Valerie Jarrett, 3 billion. And he paused for effect. Barack Obama, 5 billion. That's only 12.3 billion. Trump calculated quickly. Where's the rest? Still tracing it. But we found something else. Something worse. Kash pulled up classified documents marked with CIA headers. In exchange for the money, Obama didn't just lift sanctions, he provided intelligence. Specifically, Israeli intelligence about their nuclear facilities. Trump's face darkened. He sold out our ally. The Iranians knew exactly what they were buying. Look at this intercept from NSA. On screen, a translated conversation between Iranian officials. The American president has been most helpful. The information about Dimona is worth twice what we're paying. Dimona, Israel's nuclear facility, Trump said quietly. He gave them targeting information. Blueprints, security protocols, shift schedules. Everything they'd need for a strike. The room fell silent. This wasn't just corruption. It wasn't just theft. It was treason of the highest order. How do we prove it? Trump asked finally. Our Swiss banker has recordings. Video of Obama's representatives literally counting cash in Zurich hotel rooms. Audio of them discussing which accounts to use. And Kash smiled grimly. Transaction records showing withdrawals from those accounts to purchase property. What property? Obama's Martha's Vineyard estate, purchased through a shell company 2 months after the Iran deal. Purchase price $11.75 million. Source of funds Swiss account number ending in 4721. Same account that received Iran money. He used Iran money to buy his beach house. Among other things, his production company Higher Ground, initial funding came from Swiss account 4833. The Obama Presidential Center. Major donations from accounts we've now traced to the Iran scheme. Trump stood, pacing to the window. This is bigger than Watergate. Bigger than anything in American history. There's more, Kash said quietly. The missing 13 billion. We think we found it. He pulled up satellite photos of a construction site in northern Iran. This is the Fordo uranium enrichment facility, supposedly shut down under the nuclear deal. These photos are from last month. The images showed massive expansion, new buildings, increased security. They used Obama's money to build nuclear weapons. And he knew they would. How can you prove he knew? Kash played an audio recording. Obama's voice, unmistakable. The Iranians will do what they want with the money. We can't control that. What matters is that certain people are taken care of first. When was this recorded? 2 weeks before the payment. In the Oval Office. By his own recording system. Trump turned sharply. He recorded himself planning this. He thought the recordings were secure. Thought they'd be sealed for 50 years like all presidential records. He didn't count on. Kash held up a court order. A federal judge unsealing them as part of our investigation. The investigation had started small. Just another look into government waste. But as Kash's team pulled threads, the tapestry of corruption began to unravel. Federal agents had raided homes, seized documents, frozen accounts. And with each new piece of evidence, the picture became clearer and more damning. We need to move on this, Trump said, before they can destroy evidence. Already in motion, Kash replied. BI teams are positioned outside 5 locations. We're waiting for your word. Trump didn't hesitate. Do it. Within minutes, coordinated raids began across the country. Jack Lew's homes in New York and Florida. Valerie Jarrett's Chicago compound, John Kerry's Boston mansion, Ben Rhodes' D.C. apartment, and most symbolically, the Obama Presidential Center construction site. The media erupted as news of the raids leaked. CNN initially tried to spin it as Trump's revenge. But when the first evidence photos emerged, pallets of cash in a Dubai warehouse with U.S. Treasury seals, even they had to acknowledge something massive was unfolding. At the Obama compound in Martha's Vineyard, federal agents met unexpected resistance. Obama's private security, supplemented by what appeared to be foreign nationals, initially refused entry. It took a tense 2-hour standoff before lawyers convinced Obama to comply. What agents found inside stunned even seasoned investigators. A hidden safe room contained documents that should have been in the National Archives. Bank statements showing deposits from Swiss accounts, encrypted communications with Iranian officials, and most damning, a handwritten ledger in Obama's own hand, detailing who got what from the Iran billions. Obama himself was in Washington when the raids began, attending a Georgetown dinner party. His phone began buzzing incessantly. Then his Secret Service detail received word federal agents were waiting outside. Mr. President, the lead agent said carefully, you need to come with us. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But there's a federal warrant for your electronics and a subpoena for your testimony. The dinner party watched in shock as Obama was escorted out, his famous composure finally cracking. Someone's phone captured him muttering to his lawyer, this wasn't supposed to happen. We had immunity. But immunity, as his lawyer would soon explain, didn't cover criminal conspiracies that preceded his presidency and continued after it. The Iran deal had been negotiated while he was in office, but the money diversions had continued for years after. Each new transaction reset the statute of limitations. At FBI headquarters, the evidence rooms began filling up, box after box of documents, hard drives, and cash. Yes, actual cash found in various locations. The full scope of the conspiracy was staggering. The Swiss banker, now in protective custody, provided a roadmap to the financial maze. Obama's people were amateurs, he told investigators. They thought using cash made it untraceable. But moving billions requires infrastructure, and infrastructure leaves tracks. Those tracks led to surprising places. The Clinton Foundation had received $500 million. Various Democratic Senate campaigns had been funded by dark money traced to the Iran billions. Even some Republicans had unknowingly received tainted donations through multiple shell organizations. But the most explosive revelation came from Tehran itself. An Iranian defector, a former intelligence officer, reached out through intermediaries. He had recordings from inside the highest levels of the Iranian government. Play the Damascus recording, he told CIA debriefers. The audio was chilling. Iranian officials discussing not just the money, but what they'd received in return. Obama gave us everything. Israeli defense plans, U.S. missile defense codes, even the locations of CIA assets in the region. Why would he do that? An Iranian voice asked. Because we own him. The money was just the beginning. We have videos, documents. He'll do whatever we say to keep them secret. The implication was clear. Obama hadn't just stolen billions and sold out allies. He'd been compromised, blackmailed into betraying American interest for years. Trump held an emergency press conference as the evidence mounted. Standing before a wall of documents and photos, he spoke directly to the American people. What we've uncovered isn't just corruption. It's the systematic betrayal of America by its highest officials. Barack Obama stole billions meant for Iran and distributed it to his allies. But worse, he sold our secrets, betrayed our allies, and compromised our national security. He held up a photo of pallets of cash. This is your money, taxpayer money, stolen and given to terrorists, with a cut for the thieves who made it happen. The media struggled to spin the story. MSNBC tried focusing on the questionable methods of the investigation. CNN questioned the timing, but the evidence was too overwhelming, too documented, too undeniable. When banking records showed Obama had purchased multiple properties through shell companies linked to Iran money, even his most ardent supporters fell silent. When Israeli intelligence confirmed that Obama had indeed provided their defensive secrets to Iran, the international community erupted in outrage. The House began immediate impeachment proceedings. Yes, impeachment of a former president, a constitutional gray area that legal scholars debated fiercely. But the crimes were so severe that Congress felt compelled to act. Obama's defense team tried multiple strategies. First, they claimed the money was legitimate payment to Iran. When that fell apart, they argued Obama had broad discretion in foreign policy. When evidence of personal enrichment emerged, they pivoted to claims of fabricated evidence. But each defense crumbled against the mountain of proof. The Swiss banker's testimony was corroborated by multiple sources. The banking records were authenticated by forensic accountants. The recordings were verified by voice analysis. The real shock came when Valerie Jarrett, facing life in prison, decided to cooperate. Her testimony before Congress was devastating. Barack always said the Iran deal was about his legacy, she testified. But it was really about the money. He knew they'd use some for terrorism. He didn't care. He said America owed the world reparations, and this was one way to pay them. And the money that didn't go to Iran, that was our reparations. For centuries of oppression, he said, we were just taking what was owed. The greed, the entitlement, the twisted justification. It all came pouring out. Jarrett detailed meetings where they planned the diversions, celebrated successful transfers, and laughed about fooling the American people. He used to say, they'll never figure it out. They're too busy arguing about tweets to follow the money. But they had followed the money. And what they found was a betrayal so complete, so stunning, that it redefined American political scandals. John Kerry was arrested trying to board a private jet to New Zealand. Ben Rhodes was caught at the Canadian border. Susan Rice surrendered after a 2-day standoff at her home. But the main target remained elusive. Obama had retreated to his compound, surrounded by lawyers and increasingly desperate supporters. Some Democrats tried to distance themselves, but the taint was spreading. Anyone who defended the Iran deal now looked complicit or foolish. The criminal charges were filed on a Thursday mornings: treason, theft of government funds, money laundering, conspiracy to provide aid to terrorist organizations, violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, tax evasion. Each charge carried decades in prison. Together, they meant Obama would die behind bars if convicted. His arraignment was surreal. The first president ever criminally charged, walking into federal court in handcuffs. The media coverage was wall to wall. The world watched as American justice confronted its biggest test. Obama pleaded not guilty, his voice barely audible. But as prosecutors laid out their case in pre-trial hearings, his confidence visibly eroded. The evidence wasn't just strong, it was overwhelming. The Swiss accounts were traced directly to him. The property purchases lined up perfectly with Iran money transfers. The recordings left no doubt about his knowledge and intent, and when Iranian intelligence cables were declassified showing Obama had provided military secrets, even his lawyers looked shaken. The trial began 6 months later. By then, 3 co-conspirators had already pleaded guilty and agreed to testify. The Swiss banker provided detailed records. Iranian defectors offered devastating testimony about what Obama had sold them. But the most dramatic moment came when prosecutors played the Oval Office recording. Obama's own voice, planning the crime, Make sure the Tehran flight manifests show 50 billion. But the Dubai stop is where we make our withdrawals. 35 billion should be enough to set everyone up for life. The jury took less than 4 hours to convict on all counts. As the verdict was read, Obama stood stoic, but tears streamed down his face. The man who'd promised hope and change had delivered treason and theft. Sentencing was swift and harsh. Life in federal prison without parole. As he was led away, Obama turned to the cameras one last time. But instead of defiance or proclamations of innocence, he simply said, "I'm sorry. Too little, too late." The aftermath reshaped American politics. Every political donation was scrutinized. The Iran deal was formally canceled, with international support. Israel received formal apologies and new defense guarantees. The Democratic Party imploded. Anyone connected to Obama became politically radioactive. The 2024 election saw a Republican landslide unprecedented in modern history. But the real legacy was the restoration of accountability. The idea that presidents were above the law died with Obama's conviction. The notion that complex financial crimes couldn't be prosecuted crumbled with each guilty verdict. Trump, vindicated beyond his wildest dreams, used the moment for reconciliation rather than revenge. "We've cut out the cancer," he said. "Now we heal." The missing billions were slowly recovered. Swiss banks, facing sanctions, cooperated fully. Properties were seized and sold. The Obama Presidential Center construction site became a memorial, not to Obama but to the rule of law. In Tehran, the regime fell within a year, abandoned by allies and broke from losing their American patronage. The nuclear facilities built with Obama's money were destroyed by Israeli airstrikes, using targeting information Obama had ironically tried to protect them from. History books would record it as the greatest scandal in American history. Not Watergate, not Iran-Contra, but Iran-Gate, the theft of billions and betrayal of the nation by its highest official. Law schools would study the investigation techniques. Ethics courses would use it as the ultimate cautionary tale. And every future president would remember the office protects you only as long as you protect the office. In his federal cell, Obama had plenty of time to reflect on his choices. The money he'd stolen couldn't buy his freedom. The power he'd abused couldn't save him. The legacy he'd sought was destroyed, replaced by eternal infamy. The $50 billion sent to Iran had indeed changed the world, just not in the way Obama had planned. Instead of funding terrorism and enriching criminals, its exposure had cleaned out corruption at the highest levels. Justice, delayed but not denied, had finally been served, and America, tested to its limits, had proven that no one, not even a president, was above the law. The missing billions had been found. But more importantly, America had found its soul again.